Honor has released the Magic 4 Pro globally now. So this flagship here, powered by the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, does have 8 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigabytes of storage. This model they sent out to me. And of course, Google support. So Google Play Store is there on board with this model. Now it has a 4,600 milliamp hour battery with 100-watt charging. And the camera module looks quite unique. It's housing quite a bit of tech in there. So a 50 megapixel main camera, 50 megapixel ultra wide, 64 megapixel zoom camera, which is 3.5 times optical zoom with image stabilization. I'll show you samples later on in this in-depth review. This screen, well, it's 6.81 inches, 120 hertz refresh rate, OLED tech, and you would have noticed that yes, it has a pill-shaped cutout. So within that cutout, we have a depth sensor, and that's also used for the face unlocking, and a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera. And what do we get with the Honor Magic 4 Pro? So we have a Type A to Type C cable, our charger. Now this is on a supercharge, 100 watts. Now they claim that it should be about 30 minutes to fully charge the 4,600 milliamp hour battery, but for me it is around about 37 minutes, but it's still very, very quick, under 40 minutes all of the time. We get a TPU case and a SIM tray tool. Build quality of this phone is excellent, really nice finish to it. So we have curved edges with the glass on the back, the frame all around the outside is metal. We've got a lot going on here with the cameras, so it's quite a distinct looking camera module here. And you'll see we've got our zoom camera right in the middle. Now that zoom camera is a periscope camera that does have a optical 3.5 times zoom. So it's using optical image stabilization as well, and it's 64 megapixels. So we have the 50 megapixel ultra wide camera, and then a standard, our main camera is 50 megapixels. There's also a 3D sensor on there. So a time of flight one, which is this one right there, and then our LED flash. Now the build of it, if I put this next to the Huawei, actually, this one here, P50, I was about to say the Mate 50, but the P50, you can see very, very similar. The size of them, the frames, yeah, okay, they're borrowing some of that, still have some of that Huawei DNA left in Honor when it comes to the design. So it is very similar to, say, the Huawei Mate 50, and you'll see on the side here, we've got our buttons with the frame. So these are made out of metal, frame quality, very good. Curved front glass here. So the weight of it, it's 209 grams, and it's about 9.2 millimeters the thickness. So it's not the thinnest phone out there, but it is really well put together. Now the screen here is a stunner. So this is an OLED screen, LTPO tech that it's using, 120 hertz, HDR10 plus. It can peak over 1,000 nits brightness, and it is 6.81 inches. Now this pill cutout, I thought we'd seen the end of it. It could put off some people. So we do have a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera in this. It can fit a lot in the shot. And then we do have a time of flight sensor 3D that is for biometrics, for face unlocking to be more secure. That's also used for the stitching too with portrait selfies. Dual loudspeakers, a microphone and IR transmitter. Then down below, we have our SIM tray, which takes 2 nano SIMs. So there is no micro SD card support with this model here. USB Type-C, now this is USB 3.1. It does support video out, and then the other loudspeaker. Now the screen that they have gone with is an absolute stunner, this OLED. It's very vibrant, good contrast as you'd expect from an OLED, deep blacks. Now colors on the very edges, because of the curvature of the screen, do shift out a little, and some people may be bothered by that. I actually prefer completely flat OLED or AMOLED screens, but I mean, look at how deep those blacks are, and the borders either side here are looking great. So just get out of this. Now touch response with the screen, everything is very, very fluid. I really do like the performance of this UI, but I'll show you some of the other options we do get with this screen, because Honor, they've really covered it all here. So we get your typical color and temperature controls, eye comfort, ebook mode, but then we have video enhancer. We've got frame rate booster that can up the frame rate of content like this, for example, YouTube, Prime Video, Netflix. Now, I did test this out, and it does make a bit of a difference. It does seem smoother, but I just actually decided to turn it off because it will use a little bit more battery because it's pumping out more frames in there. Smart resolution we do have, so you can have this scaling the resolution up or down, but I've forced it to high for my review here, and then our refresh rate. I really like that Honor is one of few brands, Huawei as well do it, that do offer 90 Hertz. A lot of brands will just give us 120 Hertz and 60. The Magic 4 Pro does run Magic UI 6 here, and you'll see that, so just quickly check here with the updates that I am on the latest version. Now, I've encountered no bugs with it. The performance has been very solid, excellent. I do love how this UI responds to touch. It's great. The gestures just work when you want them to work, and everything is just very, very smooth, and that's what you want in a UI. So I'm experiencing no problems at all with it. It is based Magic UI 6 off, of course, Android 12, so we're on the latest version there. It's not like it's running Android 11, but it's that fluidity, the performance, multitasking is excellent. It doesn't seem to kill things off in the background there too quick, which I do like. Now, when you first boot up the Magic 4 Pro, there are a few bloatware applications, but it's not too bad. We have like Honor Store, Honor Club, which you'd expect, okay? Booking.com you wouldn't, TikTok's there, and a few other junky things. So you do need to go and uninstall those, but there's not an excessive amount, which is good. Companies like Xiaomi will put on like a ridiculous 16 applications, 2.5 gigabytes worth of junk you need to go and remove. Now, charge time here, it did not record it for some reason, the application, but I've timed it myself manually, and it is about 39 minutes, sometimes 37 minutes, to fully charge the 6,400 milliamp hour battery within the Magic 4 Pro here. So Antutu does get a score that's a little bit lower than I expected for a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, there's a little bit of throttling taking place. I have seen scores of actually 1 million points here. That was with the Vivo X Fold, but it still is a very good score, very fast, and you can see the thermals, the hot Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 going up from just that one run, 11 degrees, 11.4, and losing 5% battery. Internal storage is very quick. It's great. You can see sequential reads are really nice and high there, and the random reads and writes still aren't bad at all. Not the fastest speeds I have seen for random reads and writes. I've seen over 300, but especially that write speed is still very, very good. Now, the throttling, you can see it gets a best loop score, which is incredibly high for this chipset, which is good. I mean, it's high, but look at how low it gets too. So it throttles down like other Snapdragon 8 Gen 1s that I've been testing out. It can throttle down on performance to, well, almost there about 37%, but they're the same as other Snapdragon 8 Gen 1s, almost 35 to 40% it will throttle down once it starts to get hot. So we do have NFC on board with this. Safety net status is a pass. That's great. You can use your banking apps. And we do have Widevine level 1. Now, Netflix is in full HD, but Amazon Prime Video is not, which is common. Amazon, they need to actually end up whitelisting the devices themselves anyway, and that can take a long time. So I wouldn't hold my breath on that. GPS, typical Qualcomm here, so accuracy is 3 meters, it works well, and good average signal strength. So you're not going to lose your place. It works great for sat-nav, for GPS navigation. Now, battery life here, I forced it to 120 Hertz. This is a looped test, so it's a fixed test. I can compare it to all the other phones I review, and it's not an amazing score. I have actually seen better. So real world use here, you're looking at around about 6.5 to 7 hours with our battery life. But remember, that's with the resolutions at the highest, okay? And then the refresh rate at 120 Hertz. If you decide to use 90 or 60, you will get a better battery life. So this is, well, the more demanding setting that I did use there. Now for audio, sadly, of course, there is no 3.5mm headphone jack. That's just gone on almost every single phone now, well, flagships at least. So you need to use a Type-C adapter, and when you do, it sounds fine to my ears. I've got no real complaints with it. So with the loudspeakers, downwards firing here and then up the top, how does it compare the Magic 4 Pro to the Galaxy S22 Ultra. Let's find out. I'm going to test first the Magic 4 Pro. The Magic 4 Pro speakers sound alright. They're reasonably good, but they are not as good as the AKG tuned speakers that I just gave you a sample of too in the S22 Ultra. And how's gaming on it? So a demanding game like Genshin Impact does run well, and I can feel already the phone is starting to heat up a little bit. And as I showed you with the 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme test, that eventually it will end up throttling down a little bit the hotter it's going to get, of course. So right now I'm running it at the highest possible settings, 60 frames per second mode. And it's normally around the 40s, like other Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 phones are that are passively cooled. So there's no fan in this, of course. So what I'll do now is game, like my other reviews, for about an hour, maybe about 40 minutes, and we'll see just how hot is the Magic 4 Pro going to get. 45 minutes of gaming now. Let's take a look at those temperatures here. So almost 43 degrees. This is on the front of the screen there. 44 almost. Okay, there we go. 44. Getting warm, yes. And the back of it here, 38 degrees around. The camera is a little bit warmer there, but it's the front of the screen. So these thermals aren't actually too bad, but I am clearly seeing some throttling, just like we saw with 3D Mark, where the performance dropped down about 30-something%. Moving over to the cameras now. So the front-facing camera, this one is 12 megapixels, and we do have that other time of flight depth sensor next to it. So unfortunately, yes, it's the pill cutout, but this quality is quite good. As you can see, and it does have electronic image stabilization, 4K 30 with this front-facing camera and 4K 60. So I'll swap over now to the rear cameras. Audio bitrate is 256 kilobits per second. Now I've noticed with this ultra-wide that when you pan around, you see quite a bit of judder coming through, so it's not that smooth. Now you can start to apply some digital zoom. So that's the 1x camera now that it should swap over to. There you go, you do see a transition, and it does change the quality a little bit. And then zooming in again up to 3x. Well, you got to get up to 3.5. It will then swap over to the other camera, to our zoom camera. And there we go. At 4 is when it swaps over. So that's 4x digital zoom, 5 and 6. So we'd really not go over this. It does start to get a little bit pixelated, but we can certainly fit quite a bit in. And look how steady this is, considering the zoom for the optical image stabilization. That's now 10x digital zoom. Let's just zoom all the way back now with this to get over to the main camera, which we're on now. And that is now 1x zoom with the main camera. Excellent build quality, great OLED screen in it, very fast charge time, excellent set of cameras, really good performance. But when you game a lot on it, it does throttle down. So it will throttle down to around 35% of its peak performance when it is cool. But this is what I'm seeing on most of the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 phones. They're throttling. It's a very hot chipset. It's only the fan-cooled phones with this chipset that don't really seem to throttle. So that's the best way that Honor could deal with it. The UI, I gotta give them credit where due on how fluid it is. Touch response is also excellent. And the other con for me, which is maybe not a con for some people, is the pill cutout on the front-facing screen. It's a little bit of an eyesore. We've seen it, of course, on some of the Huawei phones and other phones as well. Still here, but we do gain, of course, out of it an ultra-wide camera and then more secure face unlocking, which I wanted to mention too, does work very well, just like the fingerprint in this particular phone. So well done, Honor. This is a really great release here. Thank you so much for watching my review of the Magic 4 Pro, the global release.